Hi, so glad for you guys to be joining me today.
Hi, thanks for having us, Radha.
Well, I'm so excited today to be joined by Varsha Mathur of Coaching by Varsha and her amazing husband, Mahesh Sardesai, as well. Varsha is an IFC certified dating and relationship coach. She works with singles and couples around the world to create confidence, attraction, and partnership. She's a former lawyer and mediator. Varsha loves art, music, and a good party, but is most at home when traveling with her partner. Varsha was born in Brooklyn, New York, and has lived and studied in various parts of the US, but currently lives with her husband in Charlotte, North Carolina. Her husband, Mahesh Sardesai, is an anesthesiologist who enjoys the intricacies of his work and the fun relationships he gets to build with his colleagues. He enjoys classical music, travel, and the rarer things in life like a fine bourbon, collectible stamps, and elaborate puzzles. Mahesh was born in Western Pennsylvania and lived and studied in various parts of the US as well, and currently lives with Varsha in Charlotte. So Mahesh and Varsha, thank you guys so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Let's jump into it. Tell us about your meet cute. What's your love story?
Well, I'll have Mahesh share the second half of it, but the brief sort of part of it is that we met on eHarmony and we messaged each other and talked back and forth on long phone calls, like the cute ones that end with like, no, you hang up, till all hours of the night. And then we were like miserable the next day at work. But that was the fun of it, right? But we were in different cities. So I traveled back and forth to Pennsylvania a little bit. He came back and forth to DC where I was for a little bit. It was really special, but I'll let him share the kind of funny aspect of what happened.
So, it was, unlike other dating sites, eHarmony does have you go through several steps of supervised conversation in order to finally get a chance to communicate with each other. And then when I tried to email her through the site, it actually, she emailed back and gave the email address that I could reach her at, but it was truncated. So it didn't say whether it was at Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo or whatever. And so I thought, for a day or so, should I pursue this or not? And then I decided, well, let's give it a try. So I came up with, a quick message that was not giving away too much, but clearly obvious who I was and stuff. And I sent it to her handle at Gmail, at Yahoo, at Hotmail, at MSN or something. And so to this date, there's probably Vikas Mathur in Bangalore who still wonders why I haven't gotten back. But, she responded and then it went from there. And then we had about a year and a half where, every other weekend or occasionally for a week, if I was not on call, I would drive down from Pittsburgh to DC and then vice versa. And then over time, it became her staying longer if I was still at work. And then even after we got engaged and for a brief time after we got married, we were still long distance for long intervals because she still had her business in the DC area that she was planning to wind down or make so she could live up in Pittsburgh. So we were long distance for a good while.
Almost like 2 years, I would say. What? Even after we were married, like it was a lot of back and forth. Yeah.
So you're telling me from your meet cute that dating apps work?
Yeah. Totally.
I
would say I even encourage my clients to use dating apps and just use them on your own terms.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that on your own terms is important because I know some apps are probably more geared toward certain goals than others, but as long as you know what you're looking for, if you're looking for a long-term relationship, if you're looking for marriage, if you're looking for just, a short-term thing, kind of know what you're looking for and find the app appropriately and treat that app appropriately.
Yeah. And what I often also like to throw in there is that this was marriage number 2 for me. But it was marriage number 1 for Mahesh.
Yeah.
And I think too often people worry that they have to keep their credentials as like one or the other. Once they were divorced, they can only marry a divorced person and other way around. So, I really feel like this was something that just happened organically without a lot of pretenses.
And that's the best when it happens organically. You just feel like this was meant to be in a way, but you have to put in the work and know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
That's actually a
And I
good
think it was,
segue into another question. People believe in finding the one. And Varsha, you mentioned, right? This is your one, but it took you, a couple of tries to, whatever to get there. So
Yeah.
what I mean is, why do you feel like, in your experience, having that loving partner is that value that you're looking for? So it's not about the one. Tell us now maybe how Mahesh being in your life adds that value to your health, your business, your lifestyle.
Oh my gosh, it's so multifaceted. There's so many layers to that. It's just, yeah, you're not thinking of that when you're looking for your dream, right? But inevitably, you have this connection with someone that feels really great romantically. But yeah, I mean, health wise, we're always looking out for one another, supporting each other, kind of being in the know of what the other person's experiencing. Business wise, I mean, he's my biggest cheerleader. I remember times when I was starting my coaching and he was showing up to events carrying my chairs or my signs or like whatever I needed, being in the audience, first row if I was giving a talk, being willing to kind of like experiment with some of the tools and things that I've learned and applying it to our own relationship. That takes a really solid partner who trusts you. And he's been there throughout that whole thing. I mean, I don't know that I have a better sounding board in my life, even with other coach colleagues and things like that. I always revert back to, what do you think Mahesh is going to suggest or say? And it's because I trust him.
I'll throw it back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's also a sense not only are we supportive of each other, we're also complementary to each other. And that's why we can be supportive. Like you see a lot of relationships that work where, they're both doctors or a doctor and a nurse or two lawyers or something, whoever they met along the way. We are not just different careers, but also, Varsha is a much more ambitious entrepreneurial type. So, she had a different business. She was a lawyer and then she started a different business. And now she started this coaching business. And here I am. I've always been more of like looking for that stable career, maybe with a certain built in trajectory, show up at a certain time, do your thing well. But I'm not the person who's, going into the garage, maxing out the credit cards on an idea to start it up. And I think that works for both of us. We're able to support each other. She pushes me in a way that only an ambitious entrepreneur could. And I support her in a way that sometimes is needed by the risk-taking entrepreneur.
Yeah. We definitely are like, one person's the sort of crazy idea creative person and one person's like the straighter edges and sort of like going with the rules. And it's such a nice balance. It's like opposites attract, but like not everywhere. In a lot of ways, we're super similar too.
Mm-hmm.
I think the opposites attract, that combination of complementary. It's all about balance. Mm-hmm. So also having busy work lives and busy hectic schedules, just the people that we are, having a healthy work-life balance plays a big part in our relationships. It's crucial with the fast-paced world we live in. So how do you, Mahesh and Varsha, how do you guys navigate towards this challenge, from this challenge? And do you have strategies or tips you could share with our listeners on how you guys make it work for yourselves?
What do you think we do?
I think we, and the first and foremost thing, which I think we each had to learn individually, even before we learned as a couple, was you have to value that. You have to actually point at it and know that it exists and say, like, wanting to have a work-life balance. I think I came from a background and an upbringing where it was all about pursuing a certain ambition, achieving a certain thing, and then the next step and the next step and the next step and planning for that. And I think even something as straightforward as you're given this much vacation time in your job, use it. And how are you going to use it? And learning that along the way. And then Varsha had that process herself. And then when we met each other and discovered what we wanted to do together, in terms of traveling, in terms of visiting places that we hadn't been before, or places that weren't just to visit family members or something. That is where it started. And then I think we went from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like choosing the things that are important to both of you and making the time and effort to bring it all together by communicating. I mean, I think one of the things that we do, which helps a lot, is kind of this constant daily like check-ins, where it's like, what are you up to today? Because it may not, I'm as a coach, I don't love the word balance. I just don't think it's natural. So, like, what are you up to today? Is it going to be more us time? Is it going to be more work time? Like, if this is the work time, then where can we find us time? And kind of goes at high level and sort of low level. Like, the conversation's pretty basic, but it's important to have so that you're not demanding something of your partner that they can't give in that moment, not because they don't want to, but it's just not the right time, and you can always find the right time.
I have to say, I do admire anytime you and I have worked together for years now, and you do very much prioritize your time off, your trips with Mahesh. You guys really do enjoy your relationship, and you practice what you preach. So I know that it's important in everyone's relationships, and you're making sure it's valued and prioritized in yours. So you're a good role model in that sense.
Thank you. And I think it's important for South Asians to also hear that, like, your work does not have to be sacrificed, nor does your pleasure and fun have to be sacrificed, because all of it can be important all at the same time.
And I think also one thing that people of our background and upbringing have to hear is the thing that I kept getting the pressure on from my parents throughout time is like, why am I not married yet? It's like, oh, you just turned 25. Oh, you just turned 30. What the hell? Do you want us to die first or something? Actual conversations like that. And, we know there are lots of relationships where people marry early or young and are happy. And we were two people who met and married by some definitions much later in life. And it worked. And I think what we got out of that was that we adulted before we met each other. So there are some relationships where, you're going through school together, you're married, and then you're having to figure out grad school and how to be a parent and how to deal with all that. And you support each other through that. But that's hard work. Some people manage it, some people don't. You had already gone through a serious marriage and a breakup, and I had gone through all of my training. I had a career. I had traveled abroad by myself because I didn't have a partner. I did all these things. We were both fully formed adults when we met. So we brought that to each other.
Yeah.
That's a great term. You're fully formed adults. There's one thing to grow up together and then grow apart, but you guys already kind of knew where you were, what was important. You've done the work, right? You knew you were intentional about where you were meeting people, how you're getting to know them, and you were completely different people in this relationship. I love that. Touching on the South Asianness of it all, just because that's what we're here for. You guys mentioned it yourselves, but so many South Asians, right? We're facing cultural and societal expectations when it comes to relationships, when it comes to marriage, children, family. How have you guys kind of dealt with your own family or cultural pressures? Maybe dealing with planning a family or not, or just all of that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, this is like a can of worms, but that's what it is, right?
Because we're so different in our background, so you tell yours.
Yeah, so first of all, as far as like the issues, quote unquote, that we have typically faced is that we have chosen not to have kids. Mm-hmm. And so for a lot of families, it's like either they don't broach the topic because they think we can't, or they are just really rude and blunt and want to ask, and we don't mind sharing, but they often don't understand, right? Especially elderly people.
It's not at a place of curiosity, it's a place of negativity. You just know it.
Yeah, right. So same thing goes for singles who, aren't married and they're perfectly fine and happy. So that's one sort of counterculture, South Asian culture thing that we've done together. But also, it was a really big misconception for me that people of South Asian descent come from really big families, and that's how they've grown up. Because for my family, we're 4 generations into immigrants in America, versus Mahesh, who comes from a huge family, but they're all predominantly in India. Yeah. So the way that you grow up, the way that you share your space, and the way that you spend your time is very different. Yeah. So we both kind of had to learn what it looked like to be from technically like different cultures, even though the assumption is that they're the same.
Yeah. I'm literally the guy in the new husband in My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yes.
Like he has we come over. I came over the first time to our family's home, and they wanted to watch a plain old football game on TV that weekend, and suddenly 35 people are there because they all live in that greater metropolitan area, and there's always something going on every weekend. I have my parents who came to Pennsylvania. I'm born and raised there. I'm an only child, and I got shipped off to boarding school at age 13. And I have no extended family in the US. So I had already lived 2/3 of my life away from home before I met Varsha.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the biggest thing that helped me kind of get comfortable with that is something that Varsha said kind of on the first weekend that we met in person, is that, Indian American is a distinct culture of its own. And I think a lot of time I had spent growing up, I've been thinking or been taught, do you want to be Indian or do you want to be American? And there was a judgment assigned to both of those. And I was struggling with being half-hearted, mediocre Indian and mediocre American at the same time. And I think when Varsha validated this idea that there is an identity, there is a culture where I could belong as myself, and she was accepting me to be a part of that, even though we came from very different backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
everything took off from that point.
I think it's a spectrum. We talk about this a lot. It also being Indian American, we grew up with this third culture, this grappling of identities. So we're our own culture, and there's a spectrum. There's no too Indian or too American. And I think the beauty of the work I do is working with a lot of new immigrants coming in and seeing how there's even a new culture from India that's coming over. It's a whole different, so it's a spectrum really. And I love that you guys found your place on it and make it work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so important to just be with the person that you're with, wherever they're at, rather than trying to force them into being at that place on the spectrum, to use your words, because you can't force it. It really does have to land where it's at, and you can visit each other wherever you're at,
And I think that that's a huge important point that Varsha makes, which the prerequisite to being able to do that is that you are aware of and comfortable in your own identity and who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people who go into relationships, and I'm guilty of this previously in my life, people who go into relationships hoping that the other person will fix or complete, or, like Tom Cruise in that movie where he said, "You complete me." It's like, that is not going to solve any problems for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fairy tale.
Yeah, it's a fairy tale.
It's not real. Yeah.
And if there is a hole, we probably need to address that through coaching, counseling, getting on the right track, rather than just trying to fill it with a random partner that we think is going to fill the void. So.
Yeah. Partners are just one of the many support structures that you should have.
Yeah. You guys had a very unusual start with your relationship. Not only were you long distance while you were dating, which a lot of our listeners are already dealing with, but you guys were long distance post marriage as well, as you were sorting out your new adult lives together. So along that, could you maybe share with us, right? Like, we know communication is so vital. You mentioned it yourselves, as that's the reason or how you got through it. So how do you guys now, living in the same town, but having completely different lives, how do you guys ensure that there's open and effective communication that leads to understanding and support for each other in your day-to-day lives?
Yeah, so you can build off this.
Yeah.
It's something that I call in my coaching like pillow talk. And essentially what that means is every night or every morning, or it doesn't even have to be at the pillow. Sometimes it's while we're getting ready to go for our day, or, after dinner, like making sure that there's like a minute or two, and it can be as short as that, to just say like, how you doing? What's up? What's next? Like, what's not working for you? Like, where are you at? Because if you don't make that time to check in and just have sort of like surface level conversations, things can fester, things can, be completely ignored or neglected. And I think we do that pretty well.
Yeah. I think I think making, I don't want to say a ritual out of it, but at least a habit of it, especially early on in the relationship, so it becomes natural over time, then it really helps try to prevent those kind of things that will lead to a big blow up or a huge misunderstanding or something. And, you know, early in your relationship, when you're still dating, even if you're talking about things that are more than just social chit chat, then you build up that kind of resilience and that kind of shared language that you can talk about things like money and family and, illness or other bad things that happen. Um, I think just being able to be honest and vulnerable with that up front is what leads to that later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. One last piece of related to that is like you cannot lose sight of the passion and the desire that you have for this person,
Yeah.
because all the logistical nonsense can get in the way, but it can also always be figured out. But if you're not aligned with like, why do I want to be with this person and what do they bring for me, then it's of course going to be hard to like figure out something like long distance or money stuff or whatever,
For sure. Ups and downs. Life is full of ups and downs. So you have to be on the same
Yeah.
page and be willing to be committed to work through it. For you guys, so I'm sure no exception there as well. No matter how many tools and strategies Varsha has as this amazing coach, things are going to happen in any relationship. So is there maybe a challenge or issue that you guys have faced that you've been able to overcome or maybe even working through that you would be willing to share a lesson you learned with our audience?
I think the first thing that came to mind when you asked that is related to this kind of these dissimilar family backgrounds that we came with. So you think that, being Indian American or being of Indian background is like, well, then everything's going to be fine, the same. You'll get along. That's kind of how parents send bio datas and stuff, But the fact is that I had not had that kind of upbringing or that experience where, family events, family gatherings, those kinds of relationships with people have that kind of large dominance in your life or in your mindset. And for Varsha, it was quite the opposite. And so I think once we got to realize that we couldn't assume this about each other, that they're just like me in that regard. Once we were able to discover that, and it took conversation, it took, just maybe a little bit of mental hand holding each other through it.
Well, let me give an example, because I think it's like we get the concept, but like, for example, when we visit my family, everyone's together all the time, the whole time. So the first couple of times Mahesh came, it was like he was inundated. It's exhausting mentally to be in the living room having chai after lunch, after whatever else, and then activity, and then blah, blah, and everyone's together. So Mahesh would then retreat to the bedroom wherever we were staying in the big house or whatever. And I'd be like, oh my God, is there something wrong with Mahesh? My mom would be like, take him something. Does he need something? Like, what's wrong? And all it was like, I just need to decompress from this constant everybody in my face. There's nothing wrong. I want to be with them, but I just need my 20 minutes, like literally. But that would stress me out, right? So I had to learn this about him. My mom needed to learn about it, right? It's like, just chill out. It's cool. Like, he's allowed to have his independent time. Same thing with food, right? It's like mom's always forcing food. We're just used to saying, no, mom, it's fine. No, mom, it's fine. But poor Mahesh was like, it's a new mom. Like, I'm not supposed to say no to an Indian auntie who's giving me food. So that was another example of where like he also had to just get used to like, she's not asking to force me. She's asking because she loves me. This is not something I need to get worked up about, right? Like, these are kind of like the little things that,
And understanding that perspective was something that I had to learn. And we take this now to the next level, that now we've had the chance to go visit my extended family in India more recently. And my experience with that is very different now than it was when I was younger, going with my parents, and it was it used to be almost like I was being toted around like a political candidate on campaign, sit down in each person's living room, have the chai, bow to the right people, say all the right things, kind of show me off. But I never really felt a connection. It was a very kind of regimented thing. And now here it was that my interactions and being welcomed in and feeling a part of Varsha's family now allows me to do that with my cousins and relatives in India. I could be natural around them, and I can open my eyes and see how they're being natural around me. So without all the kind of added burden and weight of acting a certain way around the elders or meeting certain expectations. I can be myself around them because I've learned how to be myself around Varsha's family. And it's great.
Yeah. And it's also taught me to choose the us as in me and Mahesh
Mm-hmm.
just as frequently, or when it's appropriate, more than the us collective, like 500 people, family us.
Right.
And so it's been learning on both sides for sure.
The concept of family evolves pre-marriage and post-marriage, right? It doesn't matter, like whatever your family before, now it's you and your partner and this unit. That's family.
Yeah, exactly.
So you guys gave us so many great nuggets of wisdom, a little insight into your lives. Before we end with the final words of, summing this all up, I want to play a fun rapid fire game just to lighten the mood a little bit and so our audience can get to know you guys a little bit more. So, rapid fire, both of you are going to answer. You guys can choose who goes first. But my first question is, what is your pet peeve about your partner? Maybe they do or do not know.
I am OCD in terms of organizing my personal space, and she's not. So that pet peeves me.
Yeah. Sometimes I close the closet door so he doesn't have to see my side. Rapid fire pet peeve. Sometimes like napkins are left on the table. I know that sounds really stupid, but like, why can't the napkin be thrown away?
Yeah, just clean up. If you're so OCD, then clean up after yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's so contradictory. Yeah.
Okay. If you were in an alternate universe, never met each other, didn't get married, what would you be doing? Alternate universe.
Searching for him.
Stop the presses. That's beautiful.
I can't. Honestly, I really like, this is why I do the work I do, is like, I want people to find like good, healthy love. Like it's real. And I would want it anywhere.
Oh, Mahesh.
Sorry.
You are so lucky. Wow.
My answer is kind of related to that. I would probably be something like, captain of the Enterprise and Starfleet in the universe, but off on my own, kind of wishing longing for someone like her.
Like Picard.
Yeah, I would be Picard, but something would be missing my life and it would be a hole her size, but I might not ever find it.
Okay, if we're going that angle, I'd probably be a DJ in Vegas.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
You'd be a DJ looking for love in the crowd, searching for Mahesh. Mahesh would be top of his game, intergalactic researcher, also searching the universe for you. You guys were destined to meet. That's what this means. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. Last rapid fire question. Hollywood or Bollywood?
Bollywood. All day Bollywood.
Bollywood probably, because it's actually it's got a happy ending and I like that.
Happy endings. Well, speaking of happy ending, what words of advice or wisdom would you give to those people out there who are seeking love or considering taking that step in their relationship to the next level based on your experiences, insights that you'd share?
Be yourself. I mean, people obsess about what kind of person they're looking for, what background, what personality, what characteristics and stuff. Be yourself, and then the right person will come along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say meet people where they're at, because you might be surprised that first impression has nothing to do with who they really are. So taking that sort of step down and getting a little, getting a little deeper to try to see who people really are.
Mm-hmm.
Be yourself and meet people where they're at. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Varsha and Mahesh, thank you guys again so much. Your love story is inspirational. Your relationship is groundbreaking and again, inspirational for people like me out here as well. So I appreciate everything that you do, Varsha. How can everybody find you? How can we get all that loving advice that you've been giving for free?
Yeah. Yeah. Coaching by Varsha on Instagram. There's a link to schedule a free discovery session. Coachingbyvarsha.com. All that. You can DM me.
Awesome. And Mahesh, thank you again so much for your time. If there's a need for anesthesiologists in my future, I will know who to look up. Thank you guys so much. Have a good rest of your afternoon. Bye.
Thank
Thank you. Wish you well.